like you. Be strong to hold the powers of the sun. To dream, believe in strength. Now I'm the only one.
In Are You Sure? Episode 6, there is no moment where love is announced out loud. No confession carefully prepared for the camera. No dramatic scene designed to shock or convince the audience. And yet, this episode feels heavier than words. It carries the quiet weight of something that has already existed for a long time, something that no longer needs to prove itself. Jungkook's love for Jimin does not appear as a performance. It appears as habit, as instinct, as something that lives naturally in the way he moves, looks, listens, and stays. From the very beginning of the episode, Jungkook's attention seems to orbit around Jimin, not in an obvious or possessive way, but in a steady, grounded manner. Like someone who knows where his heart rests, even when he says nothing. Whenever Jimin speaks, Jungkook doesn't just hear him, he absorbs him. His body subtly leans in, his gaze remains fixed, unshaken by the presence of cameras or surroundings. It is the kind of attention that cannot be rehearsed, because it comes from familiarity. From knowing someone not only in their bright moments, but also in their quiet ones. Jimin, in Jungkook's presence, appears softer. There is a visible sense of ease, as if the need to constantly shine fades away when he is beside him. His smiles arrive naturally, without effort. His voice lowers, becoming calmer, warmer. It feels as though Jimin allows himself to simply exist when Jungkook is near, without armor, without performance. Their intimacy does not rely on touch meant to be noticed. It lives in proximity, in how close they sit without explanation, in how silence between them never feels empty. In a world filled with noise and expectation, their shared quiet becomes the loudest expression of trust. There is a small moment, easy to miss, when Jungkook subtly adjusts himself so Jimin can be more comfortable. No dialogue explains it. No background music highlights it. Yet the gesture speaks volumes. It is the kind of care that comes not from obligation, but from long-term attentiveness. From loving someone enough to notice what they need before they ask. Jungkook's love for Jimin feels steady and mature. It is not urgent, not chaotic, not demanding to be seen. Instead, it is patient and consistent. It shows in how Jungkook waits for Jimin's reaction before moving forward. In how he naturally slows his pace when Jimin seems tired. In how his eyes search for Jimin when the atmosphere changes. This kind of connection does not form overnight. It is built over years, through pressure, exhaustion, misunderstandings, and moments of quiet support that never make headlines. Episode 6 feels like a brief opening of a curtain, allowing viewers to glimpse the result of all those unseen days. Jungkook appears most himself when he is with Jimin. His laughter is softer, his expressions less guarded. He is not trying to impress or prove anything. He simply exists. And in an industry that constantly demands perfection, being able to exist without pretense is a rare form of intimacy. Jimin offers the same openness in return. He does not need to explain his feelings. He does not need to assert them. The way he allows Jungkook into his personal space, emotionally and mentally, already says enough. For someone who lives under constant scrutiny, that kind of openness is not given lightly. Many believe that true love reveals itself in moments when no one is watching. Are you sure? Episode 6 feels like a collection of those moments that accidentally remained visible. The camera does not guide them. It only witnesses what is already there. Their understanding of each other goes beyond words. Jungkook knows when Jimin needs to be listened to, not comforted. Jimin knows when Jungkook needs company, not conversation. This silent communication is not something that can be taught. It is earned through time, patience, and shared vulnerability. There is no dramatic jealousy, no need to claim or define. What exists between them is presence. Jungkook stays by Jimin's side not to hold him in place, but to walk beside him. And Jimin consistently returns to Jungkook not out of habit, but out of choice. If love is a decision made every day, then this episode shows what that decision looks like in its simplest form. Sitting together, waiting, listening, remaining. Their connection does not ask for validation. It does not require labels. It continues because both of them choose to care for it quietly. Perhaps that is why it feels so powerful, because it is not explained, not defended, and not displayed for approval. In the end, are you sure? Episode 6 is not about proving anything to the world. It is a reminder that the deepest forms of love are often the quietest. It lives in the way Jungkook looks at Jimin as if the world can pause for a moment. It lives in the way Jimin smiles as if he has found a place where he belongs. And as long as they continue to choose each other, in silence, in laughter, in ordinary days, the intimacy between them will remain. Not as a spectacle but as something real. Not as a story meant to convince others, but as a connection that sustains itself. Always together, not because of promises spoken aloud, but because of feelings chosen again and again. What makes you sure? Episode 6 Linger in the Heart is not a single scene, but the emotional continuity that runs through the entire episode. It feels less like a variety show and more like a pause in time, an unguarded moment where Jungkook and Jimin are allowed to exist as they are, without explanations, without masks. The atmosphere itself seems to soften when they are together, as if the space around them recognizes the bond they share. Jungkook's presence beside Jimin feels intentional in a way that is quiet yet unwavering. He does not hover, nor does he pull away. He stays in that careful middle ground where support is constant but never suffocating. It is the posture of someone who understands that love is not about possession, but about availability. About being there, not loudly, not dramatically, but faithfully. There is something deeply telling in how Jungkook reacts to Jimin's emotions. When Jimin laughs, Jungkook's smile follows a second later, wider and more genuine, as if Jimin's happiness confirms something within him. When Jimin grows quiet, Jungkook does not rush to fill the silence. He allows it. He respects it. This patience reveals a kind of emotional intimacy that cannot be staged. It comes from knowing when to act and when to simply stay. Jimin, too, mirrors this understanding. He does not seek reassurance from Jungkook with words. Instead, he offers trust. He leans into shared moments without hesitation, without self-consciousness. The way he remains close, emotionally anchored, suggests a sense of safety that goes beyond friendship. It is the safety of knowing that even in silence, he is not alone. As the episode unfolds, their dynamic remains consistent. There is no shift, no performance spike, no sudden exaggeration for the sake of entertainment. This consistency is perhaps the most honest indicator of their bond. Love that endures does not fluctuate wildly. It stabilizes. It settles. It becomes a quiet rhythm that both people recognize and rely on. Jungkook's care shows itself in repetition, in checking on Jimin without making it obvious, in aligning his pace, his mood, his attention. These are not gestures made once for effect, they are habits formed over time. And habits reveal the truth more clearly than any scripted moment ever could. The intimacy between them feels timeless, as if it exists independently of the setting. Whether surrounded by nature, by staff, or by cameras, their connection remains unchanged. That kind of emotional consistency suggests something deeper than circumstance. It suggests a bond rooted in shared history, shared struggle, and shared growth. One of the most striking aspects of Episode 6 is how natural their closeness feels. There is no tension, no awkwardness, no visible need to define what they are to each other. They move like two people who already know, who no longer need to ask questions because the answers have long been lived. Jungkook's gaze toward Jimin often lingers, not in a way that demands attention, but in a way that feels protective. It is the gaze of someone who sees not just who Jimin is now, but who he has been through every phase. Someone who remembers the quieter moments behind the scenes, the exhaustion after long days, the doubts that never reached the public. Jimin responds to that gaze with openness. There is no retreat, no guarded expression. Instead, there is trust, unspoken but solid. It is the kind of trust built over years of being seen and still being accepted. If there is anything in this episode that feels truly unscripted, it is the emotional synchronization between them. They laugh together without cue. They fall silent together without discomfort. Their emotions seem to move on the same wavelength, as if tuned by time rather than intention. This is not the kind of intimacy that needs confirmation. It does not ask the audience to believe, it simply exists. And because of that, it feels real, grounded, human. In a world that often demands clarity and labels, Jungkook and Jimin offer something different: continuity. A connection that does not rely on explanation, but on consistency, on presence, on choosing one another quietly, again and again. As Are You Sure? Episode 6 comes to an end. There is no grand conclusion, no final statement. And perhaps that is the point. Love, especially the kind that lasts, does not conclude, it continues. It carries on beyond the frame, beyond the episode, beyond what is shown. Jungkook and Jimin walk forward not as a story seeking validation, but as two people who have already found their balance. Side by side. Not because the world is watching, but because being together feels natural. And maybe that is the most powerful truth this episode leaves behind, that some bonds do not need to be declared to be understood. They are felt, they are lived, and they remain, quietly, steadily, always choosing each other, long after the cameras stop rolling.